When they let the tiger go into the wild, everyone got very surprised. Bengal tigers are really pretty, very big, strong, scary, and just plain awesome. But there aren't many of them left in the world, and their numbers are getting smaller every year. So when some adventurers found a hurt tiger in the jungle, they did their best to help it and keep it from dying. But what happened when they took it back to its home in the wild was so surprising that it shocked and amazed everyone. Edward and Mark had been best buddies for as long as they could remember. They grew up on the same street, went to the same school, and even attended the same colleges. They stayed in touch throughout their lives, and they both loved one thing: exploring and going on adventures. Exploring was their favorite thing to do, and they often traveled to faraway places to have exciting adventures and find new and interesting stuff. They had been all over the world, from the Great Wall of China to the Arctic Circle to deep, dark Peru. They experienced all sorts of amazing things that most people can only dream about. Their most recent adventure had taken them to the jungles of Bengal, which were located along a tropical coastline. There were a range of noises emitting from the trees: hissing, growling, swishing, squawking, and even roaring. If Mark and Edward were to enter the jungle alone, they would have to remain vigilant, as things could get dangerous fast. But that's what they found so exhilarating about such a hobby. With the threat of danger never being too far away, it kept them on their toes and made them feel alive and excited. It certainly wasn't a hobby for everyone, but for Edward and Mark, exploring the big, wide, wild world was what gave their lives meaning. But what they were soon about to encounter was something shocking and exciting, something they would remember for the rest of their lives. After having planned their route, the two friends set off into the jungle. The trees and brush were thick, and making progress was slow and difficult, especially when they were both carrying huge backpacks containing supplies and tents. They trekked all day, seeing all kinds of beautiful creatures that lived in the forest. As night started to fall, they found a relatively clear area and set up camp. It was a well-timed stop too, as before long, the heavy monsoon rains had rolled in, and Edward and Mark had retreated to their individual tents, where they fell into a surprisingly deep sleep. But what was awaiting them outside their tents when they awoke would absolutely blow them away. Morning came, and the two friends were awakened to the deafening sound of the birds in the forest. Unzipping his tent, Mark stepped out and jumped in shock at what was lying on the ground only several feet from his tent: a giant tiger. It just looked at him before turning its huge head and licking its hind leg. That's when Mark noticed something was wrong. A bone was protruding through the tiger's flesh. It had clearly damaged its leg and was unable to walk on it. Not wanting to startle the giant tiger, Mark tapped on Edward's tent. He emerged and nearly let out a scream of panic, but he too quickly noticed the poor tiger's broken leg. They were deep into the jungle, and the chances of getting the tiger to somehow follow them to safety were pretty much zero. So they had to make a plan. After all, they couldn't let this poor majestic creature suffer and die. Luckily, Edward was carrying a satellite phone, and before they left on their track, they had gotten the numbers of the local Bengal authorities in case there was an emergency. This seemed like a pretty big emergency. Quickly grabbing the phone, he made the call and explained the situation. The authorities advised them to go back into their tents for their own safety and assured them that they would locate them using GPS. They'd also mentioned they would helicopter a vet in to take a look at the tiger. But could the vet do anything? Would the tiger survive, or would it have to be put down for its own good? It remained to be seen. After several hours of waiting, the helicopter eventually arrived. The tiger didn't even seem scared by the noise or sight of a craft landing or the vet cautiously approaching. It was too weak and weary to do anything more than let out a whimper. The vet examined the tiger's leg before tranquilizing him and loading him into a sling to be transported back for surgery. Mark and Edward were both invested in the safety of the tiger and asked to come along, which the vet agreed to. Finally arriving back at the hospital, the vet started to operate. It would be a tricky task fixing a leg that was so badly broken, and even if he could do it, recovery would take a long time. But he believed in the conservation of these tigers, so he and his team spent several long hours fixing the bone and patching the tiger up. It was a challenging job, but if it helped save a tiger's life, Then it was all worth it. With surgery over, the tiger was brought around, confused and disoriented. The beast was angry, roaring, and baring its huge teeth. He was left in a small cage where the vet could keep an eye on him and his progress. Luckily, though, the operation was a complete success, and the tiger was fighting fit. He couldn't yet be released. He needed rehabilitation. To do that, they released him into a large fenced compound not far from the hospital. Over the next 3 weeks, Mark and Edward would visit the tiger, watching it through the fence and seeing it get stronger every day. Progress was steady, but the tiger had soon regained his former strength. Eventually, the day came when the vet deemed him fully healed, and preparations were made to bring him back to the jungle. The best way to do it was to take him via boat, release him onto the beach, and let him make his own way into the jungle in his own time. So after cautiously ushering the tiger into a cage with an easily openable door, they set off on their short boat journey through the beach. Edward and Mark came along. This was all part of their grand adventure, and besides, they were truly invested in the story of this tiger. But what happened next was something that absolutely nobody could have predicted, and something that left them shaken. As the boat approached the jungle, the tiger seemed alert and more active than ever. He was roaring and growling, testing the bars of the cage he was in. Clearly, he longed for his freedom. The vet and the two friends sat nearby to the crate when all of a sudden, they heard a crack and a snap, and the gate to the cage swung open. The tiger was loose, he had snapped the lock, and it had fallen off. The giant animal took several steps out of its cage as the occupants of the boat, including the vet and the two friends, scurried to try to find safety. If he was still in a bad mood, he could have easily killed everyone on board, but luckily, the massive and fierce animal wasn't interested in them. The tiger literally leaped from the boat, impressively soaring through the air before splashing down in the warm sea. Edward, Mark, the vet, and everyone else on board the vessel gasped in amazement at such a special sight. The tiger swam quickly towards a faraway island. The boat followed from a safe distance and stopped as the tiger reached the shore. It got out of the water and looked back at the boat. The vet, using binoculars, saw that the tiger's legs seemed to be in great shape. He believed the tiger would not just survive, but do well in its natural home. The tiger shook itself dry and let out a powerful roar that sent chills down Edward's and Mark's spines. It was like the tiger was saying thank you before vanishing into the trees. Its roar echoed over the water, very loud and clear. Edward and Mark had experienced many things, but nothing quite like this. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.